Today's episode of the GoldCast is sponsored by...
Just 1 second there, Rudy. I actually have a formal announcement to make, if that's all right.
Okay, yeah.
So I just wanted to let all the fans know in GoldCast Nation and our family and friends that listen to the show that I will be going on season-ending IR. I have a ruptured Achilles, so I will no longer be on the active roster for the 49ers anytime until next season. I have a ruptured Achilles. I'll show you right here. The walking boot. That is a factual thing.
All right, well...
Turns out just watching the 49ers causes injury.
2020.
This is
the GoldCast.
Boom! Welcome to another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis the first, baby.
and our esteemed co-host,
Jonny Dale.
Yeah, Johnny, welcome back, buddy. How you doing?
Welcome back.
I am doing all right. As good as any 49ers fan can be right now, I guess.
Absolutely. This is, as we talked about last week, Johnny is back with us. This is kind of our mid-season review of what started as a revenge season and has quickly turned into a survival mode season. It's not even about revenge. It's about just getting through it at all. You know, we had the biggest hopes, and at the beginning of this season, I remember, Raymond, you saying in our season preview episode that really the only thing that could really stop the 49ers from getting back to the Super Bowl this year was health. And that is exactly what has occurred. Health has literally devastated this team at such a level that, I mean, it's even brought into question whether or not Jimmy Garoppolo is even going to be our quarterback next year. I did not expect at this point in the season we would be having questions and conversations about the future of Jimmy Garoppolo as our quarterback. That's probably been one of the roughest things to happen, aside from many other things. But just going into this, Johnny, you're our guest. I want to start with you. Mid-season, I'm going to ask those tough questions. So first of all, I know Raymond had said last week he felt like the revenge season was certainly over. I think we could probably all agree on that. But where do you think the next 8 weeks looks like? I mean, are we now looking at a possible top 5 draft pick? Are we looking at Jimmy G not coming back? What do you think the next 8 weeks spells for the 49ers?
Rough. I mean, it's going to be a time when you're looking for glimmers of hope for the next season. We thought we were over those years. We went through so many of those years, and we were certain that this wouldn't be the team that would do the Harbaugh, that would look so good and then seem to just fall off a cliff, especially due to injuries. And so this year it's going to be rough because you're not only seeing injuries to veterans, you're seeing injuries to young guys that you want to see get reps and you want to see get better. And it's happening in so many places, it's becoming hard to evaluate. It really is. I mean, when you're looking at the passing game right now, if you're trying to evaluate receivers, with the way that our offensive line has been performing, can you honestly evaluate even our young receivers? Can you honestly evaluate our quarterbacks? That's why I think it's interesting when Kyle Shanahan was asked this week about Jimmy Garoppolo. He said, "I don't think the last few games has really meant anything as far as what we think about Jimmy Garoppolo. I know I have a pretty good idea about Jimmy. He's already knows what he has in his quarterback. I think he knew that before the season started. I think there's an outside perspective that this year was a wait and see with Jimmy. I don't think that's the case with Kyle. I think he either knows what he has and he either wants to move on or he doesn't. I don't think there's a lot of middle ground. I do think we will address the quarterback position in the offseason, if nothing else, to get a better backup. I mean, if you have to ask the question, if CJ Beathard is not starting over Nick Mullins, from what we have seen from Nick Mullins in the Sunday night game from the Rams and what you saw from him on the field tonight, what does that say about CJ Beathard? And then also you look at Nick Mullins. The guy can make enough plays and put up yards, he puts the ball in harm's way far too many times to be comfortable with him. If whoever our starting quarterback, if it's Jimmy next year or it's somebody else, is Nick Mullins somebody that if that guy goes down for 3 games, you will feel confident that he's not going to lose you 2 of those 3 by putting the ball in harm's way, and I don't see that. So I think regardless, I do see us addressing it, if nothing else, to get a backup. As far as Jimmy goes and the rest of this season with that, I don't see them moving on from him next year. I see maybe a restructured contract, something that maybe puts him on a per game bonus basis to take into account the injury history now. I mean, we have to figure that in. Whether you love him, whether you hate him, whether you think he's our guy, whether you're not, the fact is he's going to be missing almost 2 full seasons in 3 years. That is something that has to be taken into account. Now, personally, I think the best option going forward is you address the position in the draft, and you stay with Jimmy, and you maybe rework that contract. I've heard this idea that, you know, the advantage of having a rookie quarterback contract, right? Maybe you guys have heard that. I don't know. That gives us a competitive advantage because you've seen that with teams over the last few years. But to me, that says you're punting away the next 2 years. You're punting away 2021 and you're punting away 2022 because it's going to take a quarterback by the 3rd year, especially in Shanahan's system, as a rookie coming in, before I think he will be at a place to lead this team into a deep playoff contention. And I mean, look at the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes. He was in his 3rd season when they win a Super Bowl. It's not in his 2nd season. It's not in his 1st season. So to me, if you're moving on from Jimmy Garoppolo and going with a rookie, whether it be Trevor Lawrence or Mac Jones, do you really think we're going to be in contention 2021, 2022? We're not. I just don't see it happening. And by 2023, look at the amount of large contracts we have coming up. We've lost whatever advantage we had. So it's going to be a wash. You're going to have Fred Warner coming up. You're going to have Nick Bosa coming up. You're going to have Dre Greenlaw coming up. You're going to end up having that offset of the advantage that you had with a rookie contract, and now you really do have big contracts. The difference was that you made yourself non-competitive completely in 2021, 2022. And so as far as Jimmy, I don't think we move on from him next year. That's my opinion. I could be wrong. I think Kyle will let us know that probably right around March. But as far as the rest of the season goes, you know, it's looking for those bright lights in the darkness, like the Patrick Willis was for years, and Joe Staley was for years, and Frank Gore was for years. It's looking for those guys that are, you know, the young guys that we have. Are they going to step up? So that's what I'm looking for the rest of this year, and see, you know, is there anybody on this offensive line worth keeping? Right now, it's not looking good.
It definitely isn't, and I like that you said that. I said that in last week's episode too, that the unsung culprit in this, Jimmy's getting so much flack, undeservedly. I'll be honest. That's truly what I think. Undeservedly, but the real culprit, the one who the scapegoat that nobody's mentioning, is the offensive line. The offensive line's job is to protect Jimmy G. And I said this joke for years, and I've said it on the show a million times, that, you know, if his grandmother goes in for a kiss on Thanksgiving, I want an offensive lineman there to slap her arm down. You know, like I want no one to touch Jimmy G for his entire career that he's with us. And this offensive line's inability to protect Jimmy G, you know,
or any quarterback that's back there.
Any quarterback, yeah, it is. I mean, it really is. Trent Williams, not bad, but, you know, Staley has missed.
He didn't even play this game.
Yeah, he didn't even play this
COVID.
game. Yeah,
part of the handicap list.
Mm-hmm. And then McGlinchey, our big boy from Notre Dame, he's been getting burned a lot too. And then obviously we are so susceptible at guard and center, and we have been the entire time under Shanahan's regime. We all know that they wanted the McGlinchey's boy from Indianapolis. That's when Indianapolis, the guard that they have, we were gunning for him, but then we couldn't get him, so Indianapolis got him first. What's his name? I can't believe him.
Quentin Nelson.
Quentin Nelson, yeah, that was the guy I wanted us to get. I remember I wanted him real bad, but we got McGlinchey, but McGlinchey not quite Quentin Nelson level. But this offensive line, it's the part that no one seems to be addressing. Everyone wants to give Jimmy a hard time, but it's like, okay, wait a minute, but this guy is literally running for his life back there every single game this season, and it's
running for his life on one leg. I mean, that's what you have to figure in. I mean, just look at tonight's game and the debacle that was tonight's game, and you watch Justin School get beat over and over and over and over again against a decent, pretty good pass rusher. Think about 2019. That was Jimmy Garoppolo's starting left tackle for 6 games. I mean, we see that we think about how much Jimmy Garoppolo covered up Justin School in 2019, and the run game covered him up. He looked horrible tonight, and we're not talking about that he went against guys that were a lesser talent than Preston Smith. He went against Chandler Jones. He went against Myles Garrett. I would say that both those guys are better pass rushers than Preston Smith, and we won those games, especially the Browns game. We blew them out. This is a serious issue, that this offensive line is terrible from top to bottom. I mean, we started Tom Compton at right guard in tonight's game, and then who was the guy that he got injured, and somebody replaced him, and I can't remember the guy's name who came in. It was some guy that I think was an undrafted free agent maybe this last year. It's the offensive line is a mess, and it's time to start investing some serious assets and hitting on those assets. McGlinchey looked great, but I don't know.
Yeah. Raymond, let's pass it on to you, Ray. Mid-season, here we go. What state of the 49ers? Not exactly what we expected. Where are you at? What can you add to what we've already discussed about where all these holes are?
Well, I'll start with the game. The game is exactly what I expected it to be. With all of the injuries and with COVID taking out 3 other key players that, as you pointed out before off air, they were really the only kind of glimmer of hope that we had at competing in this contest. And once you pulled them out, there was really nothing left but third stringers. And in the case of our center's a third stringer. Grasu's a third stringer. I expected exactly what we got today. So it wasn't like I had optimism going into the game. I expected a loss today because, we've done a horrible job defending home turf this season. For some reason, the Niners travel much better than they do at home, where they don't have to travel. And for some reason, the offensive line just continues to take steps backwards. And sooner or later, Nick Mullins is going to go down if this continues. He took 5 hits today, 3 sacks. So sooner or later, we're going to see CJ Beathard, if it's not shitty play that brings CJ Beathard in, it's going to be injury that brings CJ Beathard in, unless the offensive line does something. Because right now, they're kind of like, the level of play we're getting out of them right now is just, it's 2018 level of play where nothing is going right, or 2017, I should say, too, for that matter. Nothing is going right. Nobody who comes in does better. It wasn't like 2019 where the backups were playing just as well as the starters when we were missing McGlinchey and Joe Staley. Although there were times, even in the Green Bay game, I think Justin School got pulled and we put in somebody else because he was getting beat by Smith. And he ended up playing better. One of the two, I forget who it was in that first game. Either way, it was a 37-8 blowout. But at the same time, I mean, I do feel, if there's one thing I feel great about, it's the fact that Matt LaFleur can only get a blowout when Kyle Shanahan is playing second, third, and fourth stringers on the team. and that's how he gets, a reverse score from last year. Whereas last year we beat him twice with all of our best players and all of his best players, and both times resulted in devastating blowouts. So that makes me feel a little bit good, just because. And again, once again, Aaron Rodgers can only beat a 49ers team when they are absolute trash. When they are an above 500 team, Aaron Rodgers has not beaten us one time. He couldn't beat us during the Colin Kaepernick era, and he couldn't beat us last year during the very stout 2019 squad. So, but yeah, the receiver Nick Mullins was off all night long, even though he ended up with 291 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. His timing was off because the line just couldn't give him any time, and he was taking hits and is throwing off rhythm because he just had no time. And even when he had a little bit of rhythm, he was still off. Trent Taylor was a non-factor. What do you do with him? What he just hasn't been the same since his injury, and I don't know if he just needs another year to recoup, but so far it's not looking very good for him. Johnny Dell, you were talking about how it's really hard to evaluate players. I agree. Jalen Hurd I've been excited about for 2 years straight, and 2 years straight he hasn't even been able to get on the field once. And he has all the measurements to me to be, a Mike Evans type of receiver, or actually more than Mike Evans. He's more dynamic and more athletic than Mike Evans because he's a former running back. It'd be like if Evans was a running back and then became a wide receiver. But again, this guy can't even get healthy to get on the field, so we can't even see what he's capable of. At least, and Deebo Samuel too. I love Deebo Samuel, but Deebo Samuel has some health problems as well. Brandon Ayuk had COVID this night, so we couldn't see him. But right now, what I'm seeing is just a team that is completely defunct, completely depleted. There's something weird going on. Kyle Shanahan fired a director of, strength and training in order to avoid situations like we're in right now in terms of health. And here we are right back in the same mess. And I think someone from another team who's friends with one of our players said that a Steelers player, he said that they don't wear pads on practice.
Chase Claypool.
Yeah, Claypool said, he said that they don't wear pads on Thursday, and that's a huge benefit to them being able to sustain their bodies throughout the season. So I wonder if that's something that Kyle Shanahan needs to also consider, because according to what we've been told, they have a more cohesive strength and training and medical staff than most other NFL teams, where those departments are normally separated. Ours have a more seamless connectivity between the two, so that the two departments can coordinate and really kind of keep players' health at the forefront, whether it's on the medical side in terms of healing and recovery, and versus the strength and conditioning side of it. So, but despite having that, we still have the most injuries in all of football. Some of it is just picking the wrong apples, and then another part of it too is perhaps they are getting a little too worked in practice. Maybe there is a little bit of old school Kyle Shanahan in there, because Pittsburgh seems to be chugging along just fine, and they don't wear pads on Thursday. So maybe a small adjustment like that can make a big difference for these guys. But I just know that Lynch is probably also taking a little bit too many Trent Baalke-like picks too. I'm noticing I think he's still he's a way better GM than Trent Baalke has been, in my opinion, with free agents in particular, and also some of those draft picks. But I also see him picking up guys that are injured and hoping that they turn out to be some. Quan Alexander lasted a season and a half. And that was and we paid him a lot of money. That was actually not a cheap acquisition. D Ford, another guy, he should be gone by next year. I'm hoping he is. But there's more questions that I have for the 49ers than answers right now. The only answers I do have is that we absolutely suck, and it's mostly attributed to health. It's not necessarily that we can't execute or we don't have the right pieces. It's just none of the pieces are healthy.
Yeah, definitely, I agree with that, and I think those are really the two culprits, right? We're kind of grasping at straws. We're not inside the organization, so I'm sure that inside the organization is probably they have a much clearer picture as to what they believe the issues are. But looking from the outside in, we have a lot of issues with the O-line and their ability to protect our quarterback, and then going a step further behind that. The strength and conditioning program kind of feels like it's being called into question again, and this is, they got the guy that they got was, I believe he was for the Philadelphia Flyers, and they had 3 years of the most, they were like the healthiest team for 3 straight years in the NHL. we pull that guy over to become part of the program over here with the 49ers. And, there's all this discussion last year about the big revamps and everything. And then, as you mentioned, here we are again a year later, and we have been the most injured team. I was looking at a couple stats earlier this week. We've been the most injured team for like 4 of the last 5 years. I mean, this is just consistent. The one consistent problem, you could probably say above all else under Shanahan's regime, the number one hindrance to Shanahan's teams has been health every single year. And going back to what you were saying, Jonny, about Jimmy Garoppolo, that's probably that's the tough part, and I was saying that too. I know a lot of people were saying that they thought this was is this going to be kind of like the big question mark season for Jimmy G. I also agree. I don't think Shanahan and Lynch looked at it like that. I think they know what they have in Jimmy. They like what they see, and they're happy with it. The problem right now is that we're in a position where he has been unable to fulfill his contract of being the regular season starting quarterback for 16 games. He's only been able to do that one of the past 3 years he's played. And so
he's very consistent at getting injured every other season. When Kiko Alonso knocked him out in the Miami game when he was covering for Tom Brady, that was in 2016. 2017, he's healthy. He comes over to us in October. He plays 5 games straight. He looks great. He looks like the second coming of our next franchise quarterback. 2018, he gets hurt in week 3. He's done for the year. 2019, he's healthy all year long throughout the playoffs to the Super Bowl. He looks awesome. We're poised to have him set to repeat that process. And what happens? In a couple weeks, now he's done. He's done. He's done for majority of the season. He'll come back, week 16, 17. But at that point, if they're not even in the playoff run, do you even want to run that risk? Might as well just be playing for the draft at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And so, that the tough part with Jimmy, I look back and I think to Steve Young, right? You look at Steve Young. Steve Young takes over the team, and it takes him about 3 to 4 years to really become the Steve Young Hall of Fame Super Bowl level quarterback, great quarterback, and he grew into that through consistency of play. And the problem we have right now with Jimmy is that Jimmy is being denied that same opportunity. I said in the last episode, right? Quarterbacks do one of 2 things: they evolve in this league, or they flame out in this league. And that's what all starting quarterbacks do. They either evolve and have a successful career, or they flame out and then get, spit out of the system. And with Jimmy, we don't have an opportunity to see that because he just can't stay healthy. So what do we do? I don't think a guy like Kirk Cousins is the answer. I don't think Kirk.
He has a really limited ceiling.
It's so funny how many people talk about I like how there's. Have you seen this too, Jonny? There's this narrative online that people think that Kyle somehow still is gunning for Kirk Cousins. I was like, we've seen the ceiling for Kirk Cousins, and
you've seen his floor. And his floor is lower than Jimmy's. I mean, let's be real about that. We've never seen Jimmy have a 3 or 4 interception game. We've seen him with games where it's been like, whoa. I mean, but you go back, was it 2 weeks ago? Kirk Cousins threw 3 interceptions, and he had like 4 other balls that were near interceptions. I mean, it was bad. And so, yeah, Kirk Cousins can have a really low floor too. So I don't know about that.
I think Kyle could certainly get the best. I think Kyle could get the most out of him than any other coach he's had in his career, and that's evident in the statistics when he played under Kyle Shanahan versus what he's done in Minnesota, in my opinion. I just felt like he looked more comfortable in Kyle's system versus the Minnesota system. So like some weeks it's Dalvin Cook, some weeks it's shitty Kirk Cousins, and then every blue moon you get you like that, you get that Kirk Cousins, and then that's like every quarter of the season you get that Kirk Cousins, but then everything else is defense and Dalvin Cook. But again, that's the Purple People Eater cast. If you want to get more information on everything going on with Kirk Cousins, but to me, Dell, I'm with you. I don't see the Niners parting ways with Jimmy Although I do maybe see them getting a mid or late round quarterback in this upcoming draft to start grooming somebody to take the reins in the foreseeable future. Because one thing I think is consistent with Jimmy since he started playing more, and that's dating back to 2016. So 4 seasons, 4 seasons worth. We know that Jimmy's soft. That's the big difference between Steve Young. There's a couple differences between Steve Young and Jimmy Garoppolo. One, Steve Young was absolute nails. Could have been a starting running back in the NFL, and Steve Young could take a hit. He'd take a hit real well. It wasn't until till his body started to age and he took a blow to the head that his career took a turn for the worse. But Jimmy is 8 times softer than Steve Young. I wish he had Steve Young's body, because I don't doubt Jimmy Garoppolo's mental toughness. It just doesn't translate to his body. His body takes those same hits and it just breaks.
And how do you control that, right? Like what? I don't know.
You can't. It's not.
He looks like he's in
body
amazing shape. Homeboy's got a 6-pack.
Yeah, I don't get it. Does he need 10 more pounds of muscle? Maybe that would help. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I just know that Jimmy's soft. I don't think he's a soft player. I just think physically he's soft. His body tissue doesn't hold up very well in the NFL. So unless he has a terrific line, it's going to be really hard for Jimmy to stay on the field consistently. And some of that is mental too. To what degree, I'm not sure. But, some of it's got to be mental. I don't know. But, Jimmy seems to do all the right things. He says all the right things. He's obviously well-liked in the locker room, and he's a leader. He's not a team captain for nothing. He's definitely a leader in this team, and he does a good job leading this group and, making believers out of everybody. But the problem is he just can't stay on the field. I mean, this is not rocket science. Jimmy's just not, he's unfortunately just not a healthy quarterback.
I think the thing that we do look at with Jimmy, like you said, it's not something that he can necessarily control. And one thing that has driven me nuts about Seattle is that Russell Wilson will not get hurt. It was like Brett Favre. Brett Favre in the 90s would not get hurt. And something about them allows them to keep playing. And like you said, I want to be a believer in Jimmy, but it's hard when you see that the best ability, which is availability, is not there.
Yeah. And I agree with you what you were saying earlier about drafting a QB. I honestly think the only way Jimmy would lose his starting job next year is in a blockbuster package with the Dallas Cowboys, and we get Dak Prescott, and they get Jimmy, and they get our first round.
It's a king's ransom.
Yeah.
That's the only way Jimmy leaves. It's a king's ransom.
Exactly.
Our father, unofficial fourth member of the GoldCast, thinks that the Niners get rid of him and Dee Ford and save a bunch of money and then go draft a quarterback. I don't think that's as Dell, as you pointed out, that's a 3-year setback. And I don't think the Niners are willing to do that.
That kills Kittle's window. That kills, if we can get Hurd, Debo, Ayuk all on the field, that kills their window. I mean, it puts us in a really tough position. I think the only way that Jimmy loses that job next season, aside from, I mean, I'm terrified every time he gets hit, but like the only way that he loses that job is if it's some sort of blockbuster package and he gets replaced by one of these other quarterbacks that is, Aaron Rodgers. I know, him and LaFleur don't get along, and I mean, I don't know. It doesn't seem like Aaron Rodgers gets along with anybody, but that's just Aaron Rodgers. It'd be like we get Aaron Rodgers or we get Dak Prescott, or one of these guys. But then here's the thing now, and I've seen these things toted around NFL and 49ers Twitter too. Who the hell's going to trade us Dak Prescott or Aaron Rodgers for Jimmy G in a first round pick when you're afraid this guy's going to get hurt after the first game? And what? I mean, Jerry Jones might be that dumb. He really might be, but I just don't see it. I just don't see any team accepting a trade offer for their franchise quarterback to take our often injured franchise quarterback off our hands. I just don't see that being a possibility.
I would be very surprised if Jerry did that. To me, that would be more like an Al Davis move. I can't see Jerry Jones parting ways with Dak. Jerry Jones is actually a pretty good GM. He's got a pretty good eye for talent. He's hit some pretty big home runs on that team. The only thing he sucks at is picking the coach. That's the only area where his eye seems to miss. But he's great at picking quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs. He's got all those pieces in place. He just needs to get some better defenders out there and get a better coach. But again, That is the Tombstone Cast if you want to hear more about the Dallas Cowboys.
That is the We Wish Troy Aikman was still on the team cast. That is also AKA Zeke Will Never Be Emmett cast. You have to go there and find out more information about
I
the
listened
Dallas
to
Cowboys.
T.O. on the Star cast.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
I like that cast.
That's a good cast. Well done.
Pretty sure it's just T.O. talking to himself for about 45 minutes.
Looking into a mirror.
T.O. talking about Tony Romo. That's pretty much what he is. Why did they put him on CBS?
Yeah, so I think that the only way you get Jimmy G not starting next year is that situation is basically where you're getting some sort of blockbuster quarterback capable of starting and playing in the NFL right now. People I've heard this too. They've got to go into the draft and find their Patrick Mahomes. There's only one Patrick Mahomes. There is no other Patrick Mahomes that's going to in this year's draft. Patrick Mahomes isn't available in every draft. If that were the case, you'd have 32 of the greatest NFL teams you've ever seen because we'd all have a Patrick Mahomes. That's not possible. Patrick Mahomes is a once in a generation player. And there's no guarantee he's going to the Super Bowl this year either. So this is the idea that we're just going to that guy is waiting out there. And then you pointed out accurately, he sat behind Alex Smith for a full year, then started, lost in the AFC Championship last year to Patriots, and then won against the 49ers, and luckily for him, we made a couple real major mistakes that gave him some window of opportunity, or else we'd be hoisting that Lombardi trophy and everyone would be asking about the future of Andy Reid and the Chiefs.
Yeah, didn't he throw he threw two picks in that game? That was not his best Mahomes game. He's actually really good with protecting the football, but he had a little bit of the jitters in that game. It was just the pass that mattered at the biggest moment is when he came through. So kudos to him.
I think what you also see is some 49ers fans get lost in the idea. I don't know if you guys read the book Good to Great. In there he says good is the enemy of great, right? And so they get into this. We need to dump the good in pursuit of the great. But I think the problem that we have with that is that so often this isn't a formula when you're talking about drafting a quarterback, when you're talking about upgrading this position. I've heard people tank for Trevor Lawrence. Same thing happened when we were in 2015 or 14. It was tank for Goff, right? I think that was the big thing. And we saw Goff throw some really ugly interceptions last Sunday against the Dolphins team. I mean, that could not manufacture anything on offense. That you get so lost in this. If we just have the top pick in the draft, we're going to get a Mahomes. No, you're not. You're not guaranteed anything with that. And so we can tank this year. We can move on from Jimmy G. And if who we draft is not that guy, you've not only punted away the next 2 years, you're punting away the next 5 years, the next 6 years. And put yourself in Kyle Shanahan's shoes. You can get to a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. You've done it. You got 6 minutes away from a Super Bowl. You watched the film and you saw that you were just a couple plays away from a Super Bowl trophy. Are you really willing to punt that away for the possibility that you may get something better, or for the possibility that you're now going to be gone for 5 years set back, which is near the end of your contract? Are you really going to do that? I don't see it happening.
I agree.
Raymond, final record for the 49ers this season. What do you think it's going to be?
6-10.
Jonny. Yeah. We all agree. All right, what say you, GoldCast Nation? Let us know in the comments. Go to youtube.com/theGoldCast. What do you think our final record is? What do we do about the QB situation? Let us know in the comments. And we will be back next week. More guests, a little bit more looking across the landscape. And so concludes another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis first, baby.
And our esteemed co-host,
Jonny Dell.
And boom! We'll see you next time. Same GoldCast time, same GoldCast channel.